Hey, it's H1. And guess what? H1 is in the building, and we're about to run it back with another episode. H1. H1, what are you going to talk about? What is this episode going to be about? Well, H1 is speaking, and I will tell you what this episode is going to be about. It's going to be about creativity. Creativity is so important in chess. When you feel creative, that makes you more excited about playing chess. That makes you more motivated to play more games because you want to just be creative. And creativity can come from many things. When somebody gets into chess, sometimes their main goal is not to be the best, but to do something else. Like, there's so many authors that made books. They show their creativity in chess puzzles, or speaking, or writing books, or selling even chess sets, or having a chess store. That could be creative too. But mainly we're going to talk about how to show creativity on the board. Now, my opinion is going to be different from most, but it's going to be a little bit of everybody's opinion in this episode. So I can't wait to talk about all this stuff. And here we go. H1 is starting this awesome episode. Let's get it. Hey, this is Chess Knowledge with H1, and the sponsor of today is Anchor. You know what? Have you ever wondered, man, I just want to talk, and I want people to listen to me, and I don't even know where to start? Well, H1 would suggest Anchor. First of all, it's free. They have their own creation tools so that you can record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And now they have this new feature where you can add any song from Spotify directly to your episodes. And plus, one of my favorite features, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so you can hear yourself on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or many more stations. And then, plus, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Man, I almost messed that up. Okay. And then it makes everything simple for you since everything is in one place. So this is the thing. If you want to start your podcast right now, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get it started. Anchor.fm to get started. Thank you for listening, guys. H1 out. It is time to get down to business. And first of all, to get down to business, we're going to start on talking about when creativity begins in chess. Let me start you off with something. This question arose when I was talking to my brother, TTC, Topher. We're going to call him Topher the Champ on this episode. He would like that. But Topher the Champ, I was talking to him about, I don't know, it came up randomly. We was talking about Cough 19, stimulus checks, just Resident Evil 3 at that time, maybe, I don't know, the remake, maybe a little bit of I don't know. We was talking. And then we got on the subject of chess. And he asked an important question to me that I just had to think about just for a little bit, because it's hard to explain how to be creative in chess. He asked me, when can you be creative in chess? Now, why does this question arise? Well, when you started out playing chess, it seems like you're always learning from somebody else. You're always just, the main goal is just to soak up all this knowledge, or to read every book, or to watch every YouTube video, just soak up knowledge forever. But when does creativity come about? Especially in this day of age. This is 2020 right now. And it seems like every kid, every teenager is learning on their computer. and is becoming Grandmasters online. It's just so much information out. It just seems unfair because none of this information was out when I was younger. Especially nowadays, there's so many people learning from programs. And then there's even the masterclass by Gary Kasparov that's out, which is super amazing. But how can we be creative? How can we just learn something on our own and just create something new or have the sense of being creative on the chessboard? Well, I think to begin being creative on a chessboard, you got to learn chess principles. Chess principles are super important. Like the famous chess principle, the threat is better than the execution. And having principles like that in your pocket or while you're playing a chess game, just having principles pop up, you can go different routes in your chess games. Maybe there's a more aggressive route and maybe there's a more solid route or defensive route. And you get to decide, you get to put your own personality in the game. Like, for example, there's many grandmasters that have their own personality in the game. Many people think of Tal as an aggressive attacker that always went for the king, always went for the castled king. No matter what, he always fought for what he believed in. And Steinitz, the best defensive person, you couldn't attack him because his defense was just so up to par. That's how he became a world-class grandmaster, one of the best in this time. Well, is it the same now? I don't know. It's up for debate. But I know when grandmasters be creative now, when I be watching like tournaments or online games, and then I hear the announcers watch the game and go move by move of what the grandmaster is doing, and then at one move in the opening, they be like, "Oh man, there's not any games in with this move. This is a novelty." And they be like, "Oh wow, this gives so many possibilities. No grandmasters have ever did this move, especially since this is not in the record at all." And that's how grandmasters, I think, create stuff at home. They just go on their computer, look up different openings and how to surprise their opponent with something new if they've seen it. And especially if they haven't seen that move at all before, then their opponent is just stumped. And they might be just stumped for, I don't know, 10, maybe like 50 minutes. I don't know. It just depends on how powerful the novelty was. But as beginners, we don't know. We could create our own novelties, but it's not going to be good. It's because as a beginner, you can't even distinguish between good or bad moves yet. And especially your opponent's good and bad moves. But grandmasters, since they've been playing this game for a while, they know how to decipher, maybe I should try this, maybe I should go for this angle, maybe this position I can do this plan. They know how to think a lot more about certain positions, and they know how to be more creative since they're already at the top of their of the world right now, of their chess playing skills. Personality is in chess a lot, and you probably didn't know this, but each opening has its own chess personality. First of all, what do I mean? Well, you have to learn your own personality when you're playing a chess game. For example, you gotta know what you like or what you don't like. So if you like opening games, then I would go for the king's pawn opening or e4, something that is tactical, aggressive, targets the center. But if you want closed or semi-closed positions, then I would go for d4 or c4. It just depends on your chess personality, and a lot of people have their own personality on the board. Now, it's not only in the opening too, it could be in the middle game. Most people are afraid to attack. Most people are good with just being defensive or going for the safe plan. No risks. You can be creative in the middle game. It just depends on your plans or your ideas. And guess what? This is another chess principle I just thought of. But a bad plan is better than no plan at all. I'm just going to put that out there. You can think about it. Interpret it the way that you want to interpret it. Okay? I just put that in the middle of it so that you will know that there's more chess principles out there. And then there's the end game, and that's more complicated. It's a lot more complicated because there's a lot more chess principles and a lot of precision, and sometimes there's your creativity comes out in the end game as how much end game theory that you know, like rook end games or bishop end games, how you can draw in the end game when you're basically down a piece or something, or your creativity comes out of different ways. Basically in the end game, your creativity comes out of how much knowledge you have in the end game, because there's so many books, so many people talk about different types, rook, queen, king, and two pawn end games. It's so much knowledge, and it's already been overrun from my perspective. Now these styles, these different personalities, chess is such a beautiful game because there's sometimes no bad style. There's nothing to regret. If that's your style, that's your style. If you want to take a responsible risk, then that's your style. If you want to do that each game, that's you. When it comes to personalities, you can do you, pretty much. Now, a little thing that I want to talk about too is emotions in a chess game. Emotions are different for each person. For example, Garry Kasparov, if you see one of his games, his emotions always shown on his face. And he was a grandmaster, and he was a world champion for a long time, and his face always showed the emotions that he was giving. But there's probably another person, if they're winning or losing a game, they don't show those emotions at all until the game is completely done. Everybody has different emotions. Some people get really frustrated when they lose a game or get really mad at the other person. But don't get violent. Okay? You can be mad with losing. It's okay. Each person has their own emotion. Welcome to the waiting room segment, Chess Jokes by H1. And the joke for this episode is, why didn't the pieces leave their house? Because they had to be captured first. Thank you for listening. And we're back from that abrupt ending. H1, what are you doing? Can you be better? Yes, I can. As H1, I will be better. But let's continue this creativity conversation, which I think, this is going to be a little bit of story time. But first of all, we're going to start on one Grandmaster game, which proves my point of talking about creativity in this subject, which is the importance of the match can make you creative. Depending on the match, depending on if it's the last round, Or you face this person every tournament and you always lost to that person. Or the situation evolving that game can make that game very creative. For example, this Grandmaster game that popped right in my head when I was making this content was Magnus Carlsen against Fabiano Caruana. That World Chess Championship game was amazing because every single classical game that they played, which the limit in that chess match was 12, they got all draws, all 0.5. It's unheard of. It's unspeakable. That many draws. We haven't had that many draws since Garry Kasparov and Karpov. But why did it come up to that many draws? They was fighting. If you look at those games, they was fighting. It didn't just come about because they offered a draw or it was 3-move repetition. They fought each game. Powerful openings and unique technique in the middle game. Even at the end game, they both had their chances. The matches were amazing, but they had 12 draws. But it was weird though, because in the last game, Magnus offered a draw in the middle game. It was weird because Fabiano Caruana accepted the draw. And everybody was like, Magnus, what are you doing? Why did you accept the draw? Now you're going to go into rapid games, which are like 30-minute games. What are you doing? You could have won that one and not had to do this at all. You could have just won the whole thing. And then the rapid games started with Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana. They wasn't 1 hour and whatever the time control was, which was a long time control for classical, but it was rapid. It was time to go fast. The outcome of this, Magnus won all 3 of the games. No chance for Fabiano Caruana to win at all. And in an interview, Magnus explained why he offered a draw that last game. He offered a draw because he knew that he would be better at faster time control. He explained this because Fabiano Caruana at that time was not that good. Like, when I say not that good to a Grandmaster, I mean that he wasn't past the rating 2800. Like, he would still demolish anybody under that rating, okay? Because Magnus' rating was insane and his knowledge was insane and his intuition is super superb. Okay? Not saying that Fabiano Caruana wasn't a good player, because he drew against Magnus 12 games in classical games. So his calculation and his technique was awesome too. I was actually rooting for both of them, but Magnus knew that his intuition was great enough to just know that he's going to win these next 3 Raptor games. He knew. And he took that chance just because of that hunch. Now, this decision by him, I don't like that he didn't fight to the end that last match. And it could have potentially backfired. He could have lost the world championship. He could have lost. He could have lost the belt. But he knew, and he won. He proved it by winning. And I think that was creative on his part, since he proved that he was better at speed chess than his opponent. So, let me continue on this conversation with another example. It's from my own experience. Let me get this script out right quick. Yep, nope. Yep. I thought I was going to talk about that, but nah, we're good. We're going to say that for later. Sorry to be in the buzzkill, but H1, he does he does this, okay? But let's go on to another thing, what I think can be creative. In my chess team, I used to always, when I used to go over my games with my chess team, when I was in high school, I was like a sophomore or a junior, we used to always notate our games, and we used to always show each other the games that we liked the most and the checkmates that we delivered to our opponents after a hard back and forth game. It was amazing because I loved showing my team the checkmates, and the team loved sharing theirs too. And we all marveled over the checkmates that we got. Some of them were unexpected and beautiful, and some of them I can say was disrespectful. What do I mean by disrespectful checkmates? Well, what I mean by disrespectful checkmates is that when somebody checkmates somebody else with a pawn, out of all the pieces, you checkmate somebody by the weakest piece on the board, the pawn, that only attacks diagonally, 2 squares at a time. When somebody's checkmated by the pawn, my team and I knew that was disrespectful. The worst checkmate ever. I refuse to get checkmated by a pawn. I resign if it comes out of nowhere, because that is not me. I used to practice to get the pawn checkmate, like actual puzzles online. I used to just practice how to see pawn checkmate in 3 moves because I was so infatuated with the pawn checkmate. I had to place that on my board. Okay. Now, that checkmate was disrespectful to me. And if you delivered a cool knight and bishop checkmate, those always are beautiful, always come out of nowhere. And it was super unique. Or there's one obvious checkmate. But then you do another checkmate because it looks better. Aesthetically, looks pleasing. I feel like those checkmates are disrespectful too, because you could have just went in front of the king's face and been like, hey, with your queen, just be like, hey, checkmate. But you moved your queen somewhere else and was like, this looks better. And it have some geometry, technical stuff with it. And the pattern is cool, how I got the checkmate and that. Yeah, those checkmates are super disrespectful. So my team used to love seeing these checkmates and seeing the game that led up to the checkmates. And I feel like checkmates were super, super creative if you ever got a disrespectful checkmate like those that I, as H1, explained. So next time you get a pawn or a bishop knight checkmate, just think of H1. Actually, send me the checkmate. Let me see, because I think it is so pleasing and so romantic to see that passion of your deliverance on the chessboard. This is the waiting room segment. Quotes by H1. And the quote of this episode is, "My favorite Pokemon is Alakazam." Thank you for listening. Time control finessing can be creative. In my book, time control finessing can be used in different ways. First of all, it could be used in time control pressure. When somebody is low on time and you're in a drawn position and you continue to play because his time is too low. For example, if I have 3 minutes on the clock and my opponent has 30 seconds on the clock, and we're in a drawn position of probably equal pieces, rook, endgame, whatever, I'm going to keep on playing. Because eventually, I am certain that he will make an inaccurate move or blunder completely. So, time control finessing can be a big part in you being creative. Or, for example, you think that you're losing, you're down in exchange, but your opponent is down on the clock. So if you just kept on making good defensive moves, holding back your opponent, you could get the dub. He could even mess up or run out of time. When you realize those things and those things that you put into your mission on the chessboard, it can make you creative. But just a few minutes ago, I was talking about being disrespectful on the chessboard. And what's super disrespectful? If you have 10 seconds on the clock and your opponent has more time, like 5 minutes, but the person with less time wins the game still. That is super disrespectful, because that opponent that has lower time just proved that he used his time wisely. And he just proved that the person that he was facing went too fast on his moves. He thought more and balanced out his time, but the person that still had more time and still lost, he went too fast or he blundered when he shouldn't have. He did a mistake. And I see these situations happen a lot. And if you just stay in the game, even though you're down on time, you don't know what would happen. What if you're in a queen, king, and a few pawns position in the endgame, and he blunders his queen? Can you checkmate in 30 seconds? You should be able to checkmate in 30 seconds, or at least 20 seconds, or at least 15. You should be able to get the dub. That's why I always tell my students to never give up. And I'm telling you right now, as H1, never give up. And I will do a whole episode on that, because that is the most important thing when I'm playing chess in my heart, to never give up in a chess game. Now, when you're time control finessing, staying calm is key. When you're calm and you're making sound moves and you're relaxed, but you're both down on time, maybe you're both under a minute, the person usually who stays calm wins the game. Who's more relaxed, who's in the moment of the situation, that person usually wins the game. And most importantly, this is important when you're playing online games. When you see that time trickle down to 1 minute, 59 seconds, 58 seconds, 57 seconds, you got to stay calm in those moments, in those positions. You can't just let your opponent beat you because you got too nervous. You need to be more confident in your moves. Do some pre-moves. Use anything to your advantage. You got to stay in control of the position. You can't let it get out of hand. That's why it's good for you to study positions and ideas, so that you will, because the more that you study and the more knowledge that you have on a chessboard, the more calm you will be, and you would know what to do. Everybody that knows what to do or knows what they're talking about is more calm in that situation. Like, for example, when you're going to speak to an audience, usually it's better for you to know at least like 70% of what you're talking about, because it makes you more confident when you're speaking to your audience. Get those good communication, conversation skills while you're speaking to like 50 people. It's the same with chess. The more knowledge that you know, the more you'll be calm in a chess position. And plus, another thing on time control finessing that can be really creative is just keeping pace with your opponent. If your opponent is not wasting that much time and it's easy moves like opening moves, keep pace with your opponent. You can't be slacking. You can't be thinking like, I don't know, let's say you was playing a 5-minute game and your opponent only used 30 seconds. You can't be thinking like 2 minutes on the opening. The opening should be a quick send off of moves. You should know your opening. You should know what you're going to do. You should know the principles of the opening. That's the easiest thing of the whole game, because once it gets hard in the middle game, you're going to need more time for the middle game and end game, definitely, when you're playing a fast chess game. You know, things can get messy on the real board. I enjoy watching chess games on the board in faster time control. I enjoy it because the board gets messy. The pawn you think is on B2, but is actually on C2. And you think a bishop's on H1 when it's actually on A8. You know, it's just those type of things that can get you excited. Because they're moving so fast. Grandmasters, when they're under time pressure, when they're forced to move fast, they go. Just look at Nakamura Hikaru games. His games, when he's playing over the board and he's low on time and he has to bust out 5 moves that he probably already calculated in his head, he goes. He runs with it. He's a runner. But online chess is definitely different than over the board chess. Online chess, you can do pre-moves. Pre-moves is cheating. Because over the board, you can't do pre-moves. When your opponent is thinking, you have to sit there and wait until he's done with his thought. And he's done with his move with his hand. When you're playing online, you can do these special things called pre-moves. And these pre-moves can make your one move 0.1 second. Depending on how fast your internet. I always had crappy internet, you know. I'm not going to be busting out anybody's internet. But pre-moves is a very good thing to utilize when you're playing your online chess games, especially when you're down in material. You usually use pre-moves when you're recapturing a piece. You do not want to do dumb pre-moves, especially when there's a pre-move that your opponent can do that can steal your pieces. You gotta do it in a strategic way. That's all I'm gonna say. There was one time, pre-moves is really cool to be creative, because there was a time when I was playing chess when I was teaching. It was before the session. And I was playing this game on a computer. It was going well. We was both below 10 seconds. And we was going at it. I just had to finish the game. I was up a whole rook. It was king, rook, and king endgame. And I was going at it. I was doing the pattern. And I was going at it to the checkmate. But I can just see all the seconds run down very slowly. And all I could do was pre-moves. I couldn't do slow moves. I had to finish the game with all pre-moves. And I finally finished the game, but my heart dropped when I saw the time. My opponent lost. I was surprised because on my side of the clock, I had not 1 second, but on online chess, I had 0.1 second. It was awesome. And I was very proud of myself when I accomplished that goal of checkmating somebody 0.1 second. The other side, he was probably so mad that I got the win in 0.1 seconds. Now let's talk about my failure right quick, because not only have I got a win in 0.1 second, but just recently I lost to somebody and he had 0 seconds. So that means that he probably had 0.0000 something seconds, which made me frustrated. But at the same time, I'm like, he got the dub. He got the win. I respect that. What could I have done differently that game? And then I searched through it and I was like, there was nothing I could have done differently. I did every pre-move the best I could because I'm selfish. Nah, that's like half of what I was thinking, to be honest. Okay? That was just half of what I was thinking. Man, I just hate when I lose those type of games. When it's down to a few seconds and you're in a winning position, and just losing on time just sucks. And I just think it's creative how people use time control to their advantage. Now, another thing that contributes to time control is when people play faster time control, which is like rapid or blitz or even bullet, especially bullet. People are creative in their own way of using practical moves. There's a lot less risk taking when you're playing fast chess. So you don't go into some opening like the poison pawn Sicilian opening, or some opening where you have to calculate and there's not a lot of moves for you to do. There's only one move that's the exact move for you to do that is perfect. But people go into openings where it's casual, it's easy, develop all my pieces are developed. I can do several moves, but I can get away with them since this is bullet, and it's just easy flowing moves. And those positions are very creative. That's when somebody is just letting out their creativity, when they're doing specific openings with many options. One more scenario I'm going to talk about with time pressure is I've seen people lose, especially I've seen a Grandmaster top 10 lose this way. It's when two opponents are at a chessboard and one opponent is clearly winning, but the win is not that simple. Actually, in this win, there's many ways to win, but at the same time, it's still tricky. And you, as the player or a player, he has to choose one way that is the best way of winning. That is the best way of getting the job done. When players have too many options, it's a good spot to be in because you're thinking, hey, I'm going to win this game no matter what option I do. But at the same time, you're like thinking too long about the options. How are you going to win? And then you do one of the winning moves, but then you have to follow through with it. Let's say you have a hard-headed opponent that never stops fighting, and that is always finding tricks. Talk, Davon. That is always finding tricks. Because when somebody's on the defensive, they don't just give up. They have eagle eyes looking for tactics, looking for ways that you will lose. That's why you celebrate, not during a chess game, but afterwards, after you win. Because you don't want to touch an animal that is hurt. Have you ever touched an animal that is hurt? Let's say a bear has a gash on his leg. Are you going to touch that gash with your hand? Are you going to stick your hand in that gash? No, it's a bear. You better be hesitant. Hopefully that's a good illustration, because H1 could have made a better one, but nah, I chose that one. I chose that Build-A-Bear example, but yeah, that's the only example I'm going to get. H1, you messed up for that one. You just going to leave us hanging? Maybe. Shoot. Call me maybe. Wow, you made it. You made it till the end. H1, you are ending this? What? This is confusing, bro. Well, since you're ending it, I think H1 is ready for the review. What's the review? Well, first of all, we talked about ways of how you can be creative from my perspective in chess, which is the personality of the chess game and the importance of the chess game. And for me personally, it was going over checkmates. Don't forget about the disrespectful checkmates of the pawn. That's super disrespectful. You hear me? Bro, shoot. It just makes me mad. You just go over and over that. Man, I never got checkmated with a pawn. My whole chess career, you'll see 10,000 losses on my online thing, but you won't see a pawn checkmate on me. Shoot. But anyway, the other thing that we went over was time control finessing, which is my favorite because I just love to see someone battle it out, bullet. I was just obsessed with bullet chess and blitz chess on YouTube. I just love just seeing it. Not because of it's not even the person that I liked seeing on YouTube. It was usually the game and like the fight and the opening and the battling of the middle game. The ideas clash. It was finessing on time control is amazing. But other than that, in this next episode, I have something special. We're going to talk about, it's such a broad episode that we're going to talk about. And I'm just going to begin that section with chess mistakes. Chess mistakes. Okay? Hopefully you'll come back for that. And I'm going to work hard on that subject. But other than that, thanks for listening. And I appreciate all of your help. And I welcome you to come back so that we can run it back with some more chess knowledge. Peace.